So since I've moved to this apartment, I've been having such a hard time getting my work done. I've actually started like several things. One of the biggest ones that I've been wanting to work on is about the HeLa cells out Henrietta Lacks. I have so much, I have several pieces that I've like compiled, and I haven't had a chance to do anything. But the one thing that I realized that I actually probably needed to say, because it affects all of this, it affects like people's ability to process new information, is that if you're online and if you're reading a lot of like what people are saying about disabled people, if you're outside a lot and you're around anti-maskers a lot, it is a really, really good idea to begin trying to tap into anything that sort of pushes against the narrative that disabled people and disabled animals should die, especially like with the cullings of the birds. Because I read about that last night. Like somebody said, oh, I know so many flocks that have been euthanized. And I thought about it and I was like, oh, she actually sounds really humane. I wonder how they euthanize all these birds. And then I read it and it's actually like pretty terrible. It's through like carbon monoxide poisoning. There's like other ways that they do it, but honestly it sounds very much like a gas chamber. Um, the cullings have gone on for a while, by the way. This happened about a decade ago because I think bird flu started about a decade ago, and then they culled a lot of the birds, and then I think they suppressed it in other ways. There was just like a better worldwide response, and the one that we're having right now is not really a response. It's sort of like the aftermath after there's like major infections. But anyway, if you are like regularly online, you're probably constantly seeing someone who is saying that disabled people should die or are worthless. Oh my God, that's what it was. Someone said that if you were disabled, you weren't going to be part of the revolutionary vanguard. And I was like, oh my fucking God, you people are so corny. Like, you have turned being online into nothing but a fake fucking personality. You're not like a real person. You are not doing, you are not a revolutionary vanguard in the United States of America. Like, could we please be fucking for real? There is no real rebellion here. There's like no real revolution here. Um, about a year ago, like people who I thought genuinely cared about me were subtweeting me because I was sharing information about how you protect yourself from climate collapse, and I was recommending that people learn how to notice like the different cartridges and how to purchase an elasto. And there were people who didn't even understand how to do those things before they ever interacted with me, how to search for them or what those things did or the seals on them. And once they began interacting with me and they knew someone whose life depends on those tools, those medical devices, suddenly they had a lot of negative things to say about these medical devices that help keep people like me alive. And these are people that I was friendly with. These are people that I was in regular contact with and that I was constantly sharing a lot of health information with. And it did kind of like, I don't necessarily know if it hurt my feelings, but it absolutely shocked me. We weren't really friends, but it was enough people doing it back to back that it definitely sort of confused me because I was like, what is this? You people have gone from like this moment of extreme, like almost obsession with people, like where you're like sitting and like regurgitating my words, like within instance. And this is actually something that consistently kept happening to me. People would like start regurgitating things that I was saying within instance of me, like saying certain things, but then over a period of a couple of months, it would turn into like the things that I was recommending that people learn how to do to protect themselves were things that were kind of worthless and kind of pointless and not really all that necessary. And what where does that come from? Well, it comes from the idea that people like me should not exist. And whether or not you sit and process it, it's this is the exact same thing that happens with white supremacy, with patriarchy. When people first get introduced to these concepts and they begin thinking about what it means and like how it affects them and how their entire worldview has been like like built by these systems, like once they begin to understand them as systems, they typically have like very strong responses to people who are black. They have typically very strong responses to people who are women. And it does not matter if they chose to learn about these things themselves. It doesn't matter if they sought to educate themselves. They typically, in their personal relationships, will have a very strong backlash to those people. And it's the same thing with ableism. And I was talking to one of my friends about this the other day, and she made this joke about people who are trying to sort of like be the what did she say, the COVID cautious whisperer. I can't remember. It was so funny, but it was like she basically explained that like a lot of people are looking for saviors. Okay, that is what the fear of disability does. That is what disability does to you. It's okay to admit this. It is scary to be ill, and it is scary to not know how to make yourself better. And typically, what happens to a lot of people is they go seeking expertise, and usually, and this is a very American phenomenon, especially just like even the concepts of like role models. Like I've lived overseas and I've never met so many people who believe in role models. It's a very Western concept. Like they go looking for saviors. And honestly, in some ways, that's kind of like what role models are too, because I don't really think that you should be modeling your behavior on anyone. That really should be an internal thing that you figure out on your own from your own sense of morality. But anyway, what a lot of people are looking for is they're looking for people with expertise about the pandemic, and typically they're getting a lot of information from those people. It does often lead to obsession, and that obsession is tied very, very much to wanting saviorhood, like hoping that someone will come along and save you and make it all less scary. The problem with saviorhood and things like that is typically it leads to resentment as well, especially when the people who are going to have the most expertise are people who are the most affected by the pandemic. They will be people who can't breathe the air without special tools. They are going to be people who have been disabled prior to this, so they understand things like hormones and they understand like going to trees. But anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and like the way that like that's my own personal experience. That is something that happens to me with a lot of people, sort of like pedestaling and then looking for saviors and then needing to destroy them because you don't know how to deal with the fact that you were kind of not shaped until you interacted with them. It's my cat. I think the best way to deal with like this, like being inundated with like nonstop everything disabled should die, is honestly like spend time with trees, especially diseased trees, plants, but especially trees, and like begin like developing certain rituals and certain practices. Like for me, I'm disabled. One of my cats is very sick. The damage from the last house really, really affected us, me and one of my cats. And so, like, our medicine time is one of our rituals, and like, because you're not always going to get like a progress report, and things aren't always going to get better. Like, oftentimes they'll get worse, but like, I really put a lot of effort into having certain rituals around not getting stuck in that feeling of this is totally pointless. Because I think that's what a lot of people do, and I think that that explains why a lot of people became hostile towards me over time, is that, like, the things that I recommend, they require a lot of effort. Well, like everything in life, they do. Like, you didn't learn how to, like, change your clothes, like, without effort. You didn't learn how to wash your clothes without effort. You didn't learn how to cook without effort. Every, like, it is a natural part of life to learn new skills. And the thing that a lot of people really struggle with acknowledging about Americans is that you can go a very, very long time without developing skills. And the idea of a black disabled poor person being like, you have to develop skills and you have to learn how to care for yourself and you have to learn how to connect to people, that's just going to lead to resentment. This is not, this like ableism 101. It's not a really complicated concept. It's actually very, very simple. But yeah, try to develop like some habits outside of online stuff and try to develop a lot of like really strong rituals. My medicine with the cats is like one of my rituals. Going to trees is one of my rituals, and just like being with trees, especially diseased trees, after my time in Niagara Falls. And, just sort of like touching them and remembering that there's like still value to life, even if it doesn't exist in the form that you are always told it should exist in. That like damaged things still have value because we are all very damaged. And so it's like you kind of have to like really, really push against this tide of rising fascism and rising eugenics, because they really are affecting people's like day-to-day interactions. And like the experiences that I've had over the last year have been very, very terrible, very, very terrible. And I know that a lot of it does come from thinking, from people really struggling with acknowledging that they don't think my life has value either, because if it requires so much effort to survive, maybe it shouldn't exist. Because we're told that, but that's what we're constantly told about Black disabled life. When the reality is that most Black people are disabled, and so if you have that perspective, like you really just don't have a lot of care for Black life in the first place.